This I'll just read out the question. It's a slightly longer thing. It's evident that the new administration of TN and particularly you have been continuously looking at the development of for efficient governance, in line with the political philosophy, which is social justice, as you say. Is there a special focus on land database, particularly with regard to Panjami lands? That is the question.
Yeah, I don't want to get into just Panjami lands, but I want to say that overall there's a huge problem with lands, right? I don't know if you've read my budget speech, but I've cited the CAG report that says that 2.05 lakh hectares, about 4.5 lakh acres of government of Tamil Nadu land, which is about 5% of the entire land holdings of the state of Tamil Nadu or the people of Tamil Nadu, is under encroachment, even by the government's own data systems. My best guess is that's a huge underestimate. I have said in the assembly that there are probably thousands and thousands of acres that were leased during the days of the British Raj have expired that we have not gotten back into possession. There are hundreds or thousands of acres of land that were leased by the government of Tamil Nadu or the state of Madras or the Madras presidency or whatever that have not fit the reason for which they were given. We have not gotten those back. So we are an enormously asset-rich state. My friend Rajesh Jain started this movement called Dhanwapsi, if I'm remembering right. And he had a very valid point. He said, "How do we, is it conscionable to say that we have a whole bunch of poor people in our state or in our country, and yet we have all these assets that are lying, unused and unlocked?" So if you look at it from Tamil Nadu's perspective, I'll give you one example. We decided, the chief minister announced that we would set up a library in Madurai in the name of our former chief minister Kalaignar, and we were looking for a spot for it. And after the first kind of 2 rounds in 6 places, nothing quite fit the bill. When we finally decided that we had to expand, suddenly one DRO said, "Why don't you look at this place?" And it's a prime piece of property, about 2.7 acres, on one of the biggest main roads, about 100 meters from my house. And as soon as I saw it, I said, "Hey, if this is an available possibility, then there are 50 like this." The collector's bungalow sits on 10 acres. The commissioner sits on 8. You look at, like, there are hundreds of acres of government of Tamil Nadu land or Corporation of Madurai land in the most expensive parts of the city, and they're all used highly inefficiently. What do I mean by inefficiently? The person who was occupying this 2.7 acre prime land worth tens of crores in a building dating back to 1912 that was leaking and not fit for purpose was an assistant engineer of the Public Works Department. So surely that was not the ideal utilization of an asset worth 20 crores for such a junior employee of one of the 54 departments of Tamil Nadu. So I think from a land perspective, I would say that Tamil Nadu has done a better job than most in terms of Panjami lands and stuff like that. But I'm relatively new to the system, so maybe my perception is wrong. But I can say with certainty that we are sitting on, just so much. I give you a different example. This is my own house, but my allocated government house is across the street, about a couple hundred meters away. That is one of 50 or 60 or 80 or 100, I don't know, houses between ministers, judges, etc. All of those houses are, sitting in prime parts of the city, and they're, huge compounds, half an acre, quarter an acre, 1.5 acres, 1 acre. But there's no reason why those lands should be used using 1930s buildings, 1920s buildings, 1950s buildings for the utilization of ministers. I think most ministers and judges would be happy to live in much more modern, much more efficient, much more comfortable, buildings, and we could leverage those lands. We don't even have to sell them. We could take out, like Singapore does, 99-year leases. So land is a huge underutilized asset in most states and definitely for the country. I think there's a lot of potential. As you know, the lack of large land banks or the lack of land parcels is the biggest barrier to having high industrial growth in many cases. We're not able to get the right size industries with the right amount of land at the right time.